The quiet encounter. The station was noisy, filled with strange voices, bright lights, and the smell of oil and metal. Ships came and went, traders shouted prices, and guards walked with heavy boots. But one man moved quietly through the chaos. He was human. His steps were steady, but his eyes showed exhaustion. He had traveled far, and his ship carried the marks of long journeys. He stopped near a corner, where the crowd was thinner. Here the sounds of the market faded just enough for him to breathe. His stomach growled, loud, sharp. He had eaten nothing fresh for days, only dry packs of food that tasted like dust. He longed for something real, something warm. But humans were not welcome in most kitchens here. Aliens traded goods, sold weapons, or repaired ships. But they did not share food with humans, and then he heard a voice. Soft. Almost a whisper. Human. I can cook. The words came from the shadows. He turned quickly. At first he saw nothing, just the dim glow of broken neon lights. Then his eyes focused on her. An alien girl stood there. She was small compared to others of her kind. Her skin had a faint shimmer, like the surface of water under moonlight. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly blue. She wore simple clothes, worn at the edges, and held a small bundle close to her chest. She looked fragile, but her gaze was steady. The human froze. No alien had ever spoken to him like this. Not softly, not kindly, and never about food. You can cook? He asked, his voice low. She nodded once. Her lips barely moved. Yes, I can cook. Suspicion tightened his chest. Was this a trick? Was she trying to lure him somewhere dangerous? Many humans had disappeared in stations like this, drawn into traps by promises too good to believe. But then, his stomach growled again. The sound made the alien girl's lips curve into the smallest smile. It was not mocking, it was almost gentle. Follow me, she whispered. The human hesitated. Around him the station kept moving. Traders argued. Guards shouted orders. Nobody seemed to notice the girl, or maybe they pretended not to. She turned slowly and walked toward a narrow hallway. Her steps were light, cautious. She did not look back, but he could feel she wanted him to follow. His instincts screamed caution. Yet something in her voice, soft, trembling, but sincere, pulled him forward. Step by step, he followed her into the dim passage. The hallway smelled different. Not metal, not fuel, not smoke. It smelled faintly of herbs, spices, and something warm. Something like home. His chest tightened as memories rose. His mother's kitchen on Earth, the sound of boiling soup, the taste of bread. Memories he had buried long ago during his years among the stars. The girl stopped at a small door. She looked around carefully, then pushed it open. Inside was a tiny kitchen, strange, hidden in this part of the station. A small stove glowed, old but working. Pots hung from hooks. A few jars of spices lined the shelves. It was simple, but it was real. She turned to him. Her voice, still soft, carried a quiet strength. Sit. I will cook for you. The human hesitated again, scanning the room. It looked safe. No guards, no hidden weapons, only a kitchen. Slowly, he sat at the small table in the corner. The girl moved with care. She opened her bundle. It held fresh roots, dried meat, and herbs. She began cutting with a sharp knife, her hands precise, her movements practiced. She lit the stove, and soon the room filled with the sound of sizzling. The smell spread, rich, savory, unlike anything he had tasted in months. The human watched silently. She spoke little, only asking once, "Do you like strong flavor or mild?" He blinked. The question felt strange. Nobody asked a human about taste here. Strong, he said quietly. She nodded, added more spices, and stirred the pot. Steam rose, carrying scents that made his mouth water. He leaned forward, unable to hide his hunger. Minutes passed. The noise of the station outside faded, replaced by the bubbling of stew. It was almost peaceful. Finally, she placed a bowl before him. The soup glowed faintly, filled with strange vegetables and tender pieces of meat. The smell alone made his chest ache. "Eat," she said softly. He lifted the spoon slowly, still cautious. But when the first taste touched his tongue, his eyes widened. The flavor was deep, layered, alive. It was more than food. It was memory, comfort, warmth. He closed his eyes, savoring it. When he opened them, she was watching. Her gaze was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as if she feared rejection. He paused, searching for words. "It's perfect." For the first time, her face lit up. A quiet smile spread across her lips, and in that small kitchen, far from Earth, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile thread of trust. But behind that moment of peace, a shadow still lingered. Why had she chosen him? Why had she risked speaking to a human? And what danger might follow her soft words? The human ate, but his mind whispered caution. Something was coming, something hidden in her silence. The encounter had just begun. The first meal. The human ate in silence, each spoonful filling his stomach, and yet stirring something deeper. The alien girl stood across the table, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She did not eat. She only watched him, her glowing blue eyes fixed on every move he made. The stew was rich, almost too rich for him. But he could not stop. Each bite reminded him of Earth, of warmth, of belonging. Yet here he was, in a hidden corner of a hostile station, eating food made by someone who should have hated him. When the bowl was empty, he set the spoon down slowly. The girl leaned forward. Her lips parted and her soft voice broke the silence. "Do you like it?" He nodded once. "Yes, more than I expected." Her eyes flickered with relief, but also with fear. She turned away quickly, cleaning the pot. Moving faster than before, her hands shook though she tried to hide it. "Why?" he asked, his voice low. She froze. "Why cook for me? Humans are not welcome here, you know that." She kept her back to him for a long time, the knife clinking against the cutting board as if it gave her courage. Finally, she whispered, "Because food speaks when words cannot, and I do not talk much." Her words hung in the air. They were simple but heavy. The human leaned back, watching her carefully. He wanted to believe her. Yet something about her still felt hidden. Something pressed down on her shoulders, unseen but heavy. The door creaked suddenly. A sound from outside. His hand moved to the blaster at his belt. She froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, the tension filled the room like smoke. But then the sound faded, only footsteps passing by. Still, his heart did not calm. He leaned forward. "Who are you hiding from?" Her eyes dropped. She did not answer. Instead, she pulled out a small loaf of bread, tearing it into pieces with careful hands. She set one piece before him. "Eat more. You need strength." He narrowed his eyes. "Strength for what?" She did not reply. The human ate again, though slower this time. Each bite filled him, but his mind churned. She was not just some cook. She was running from something, or someone, and by eating her food, by stepping into this hidden kitchen, he might have already stepped into her secret. When he finished, she finally sat down across from him. Her hands rested on the table, trembling slightly. "Human," she began softly. "Do you know why my people do not share food with yours?" He shook his head. "Because they hate us." Her eyes lifted, glowing faintly in the dim light. "No, because food binds. To share food is to share trust. To eat together is to admit we are not enemies. My people fear what that bond could mean." He stared at her, stunned. He had traveled across countless systems, seen war, betrayal, trade, and lies. But never had anyone said something so simple, yet so dangerous. "And you," he said slowly, "you chose to break that rule." Her voice grew even softer. "Yes, and now I cannot turn back." Before he could ask more, a sudden alarm rang faintly through the walls of the station. The sound was distant but sharp enough to make her flinch. She stood quickly, gathering the bowls and tossing the scraps into a hidden bin. "They are searching," she whispered. "We must go." He rose to his feet, his instincts sharpened. "Who is searching?" Her eyes locked onto his, wide and urgent. "Patrols. They know I came here. If they find you with me, they will not ask questions. They will kill you." The human's hand tightened on his blaster. His mind raced. He could leave her, walk out now, vanish into the crowd, pretend he never heard her soft voice. It would be the safer choice. But when he looked at her standing there with trembling hands, clutching nothing but a small bundle of spices, he felt something stir inside him. He had been alone for too long, hungry for too long, and she had fed him, not just with food but with trust. Outside, the sound of boots grew louder, heavy, metallic, drawing closer to the hallway. The alien girl whispered again, almost trembling, "Please, help me." The human's pulse quickened. The stew still lingered on his tongue, warm, comforting, but now his hands were cold, his heart racing. He knew he had stepped into something dangerous, something that might change not just this night but his life. The patrol was close, too close. He looked at her one last time. Her eyes begged him silently, just as her food had. And in that moment, the human realized this was no ordinary meal, this was a choice. The first meal had ended, but the true test was only beginning. Secrets behind her cooking. The footsteps outside grew louder. The human's hand stayed on his blaster, ready to draw. The alien girl's breath came fast, her eyes darting toward the door. For a moment, the kitchen felt like a trap, but then, the steps faded. The patrol had turned down another corridor. Silence returned, heavy and tense. The human slowly lowered his hand, but his eyes never left her. "Tell me the truth. Who are you? Why are they hunting you?" Her shoulders sagged. She clutched the bundle of spices to her chest like it was her last treasure. Her lips parted, and in her soft, trembling voice she said, "Because I know things I was never supposed to know." The human frowned. "Things?" She nodded. "Recipes, secrets of food, of your kind, of mine. My people believe cooking is power. It carries memory, it carries history. To them, food is sacred and dangerous if shared with outsiders." The human leaned back, trying to understand. "Dangerous, it's only food." Her glowing eyes met his, steady, but filled with sorrow. "Not only food. Food shapes bonds. It changes how enemies see each other. Once you eat what I cook, you cannot see me as a stranger. That is why they forbid it, that is why they forbid me." Her words struck him. He thought of the stew still warm in his stomach. She was right. Already she did not feel like a stranger. Already he felt a thread connecting them, fragile but real. But then a sharper thought cut through him. "So you gave me this bond. On purpose?" She shook her head quickly, almost desperate. "No, not to trick you, to show you, to remind myself, and maybe you, that there is another way." Her hands trembled as she placed the bundle of spices on the table. She untied the cloth, revealing tiny jars, dried leaves, and strange powders that shimmered faintly under the light. "These are forbidden to carry. Each one is a memory of my people. Each one holds their history. If they find me with these, they will call me a traitor. They will take me away." The human studied the jars, noticing the faint glow, the scent that reminded him of faraway forests and oceans he had never seen. He asked, "Why risk it? Why not stay silent like the rest of them?" She looked at him, her eyes deep, her voice softer than ever. "Because silence is death. I do not talk much, human, but I can cook. Cooking is my voice." Her words settled in his chest like weight. She was more than a runaway. She was a rebel, one who fought with pots and pans instead of guns. The sound of boots echoed again, this time closer. The human's instincts screamed that they were running out of time. He rose, his chair scraping against the floor. "We have to move. Now." But she did not move. She stared at him, her lips trembling as she whispered, "If you leave me now, I will not survive. But if you take me with you, you will carry my curse." He frowned. Curse? Her hands tightened on the spice jars. To share my food is to share my fate. If they catch you with me, they will brand you an enemy of my people. You will be hunted not only here, but across the stars. The human's jaw tightened. He thought of his long journeys, his battles, his scars. He had always been alone, always moving, always searching for something he could not name. And here was this quiet alien girl offering him danger and thus but also something more. The door rattled suddenly. A fist pounded against it. A voice shouted in a harsh alien tongue. The patrol had found them. Her eyes widened with fear. The jars slipped from her hands, clattering across the table. One cracked open, releasing a sharp, sweet scent that filled the air. The human grabbed her wrist. "We're leaving." She looked at him, stunned. "You would protect me?" He pulled her close, his voice low but firm. "You fed me, that means we're bound. I won't break that." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say more, but the door slammed again. The human drew his blaster, eyes narrowing. The patrol would break in within seconds. The alien girl whispered, almost like a prayer, "Then my food has done its work. It gave you my heart." The word struck him harder than the pounding on the door. He realized then that her secret was not only about recipes, it was about survival, about trust, about a connection that defied rules. The door cracked. Metal bent, under the weight of heavy fists. The human tightened his grip on her hand. "Stay behind me." As the door began to break, the kitchen filled with the scent of her spilled spices. It smelled like courage. It smelled like war. And in that moment, the human knew this quiet encounter was no accident. He had stepped into a fight that would change everything. The choice. The door shook under the force of pounding fists. Dust drifted from the frame. The human could hear voices shouting in harsh tones, demanding it be opened. He gripped his blaster, tight, the metal warm in his hand, his pulse steady but fast. Behind him, the alien girl stood frozen, her glowing blue eyes wide with fear. Her hands clutched the edge of the table, knuckles white. The scent of her spilled spices filled the air, sharp and heavy, almost drowning out the metallic stench of the station. "Hide," he whispered quickly. But she shook her head, voice trembling. "No hiding. If they find me here, they will kill you too. You must leave me." The human turned sharply. His voice was low, rough. "Not after what you did." Her lips parted, confused. "What did I do?" "You fed me," he said simply. The door cracked, metal groaning under the weight of heavy boots outside. The patrol would break through any moment. The girl shook her head again, panic in her voice. "They are too many. You cannot fight them all. If you stay, you die." His eyes narrowed, determination burning like fire. "If I leave, I die anyway. Maybe not my body, but something inside me." The pounding grew louder. A crack split the frame. Shadows of armored figures loomed through the gap. The human's mind raced. He had lived his life moving from place to place, never trusting, never staying. But this girl, silent, fragile, with nothing but spices and courage, had offered him trust. She had broken her people's law for him, and now she was asking him to abandon her. It wasn't just her fate anymore. It was his choice. He glanced around the room, searching quickly. The kitchen was small but filled with tools. Pots, knives, jars. Nothing meant for war, but everything could be turned into a weapon. He looked back at her. "Do you trust me?" Her eyes widened, trembling. She whispered, "Yes." "Then stay behind me." The door burst open. 3 armored figures stormed inside, weapons raised. Their armor glistened under the dim light, their faces hidden behind dark masks. The leader barked an order in a guttural voice, pointing at the girl. The human raised his blaster. Calm, steady. "She's with me." The leader sneered. "Then you die with her." The first shot came fast. The human dove to the side, dragging the girl down with him. The bolt scorched the wall where they had stood. He rolled, aimed, and fired. One patrolman fell, sparks bursting from his armor. The girl gasped, covering her mouth. The human pulled her up, shoving her behind the table. "Stay low." Another shot blazed past, shattering jars of spice. The air filled with glowing dust, swirling like smoke, blinding the room. The patrol stumbled, coughing, their visors clouded. The human seized the chance. He fired again. Another fell. The third lunged forward, swinging a heavy weapon. The human barely dodged, the blade carving into the table with a loud crack. The girl screamed softly. Her trembling hands grabbed a pot from the stove and hurled it at the soldier. The hot stew splashed across the armor, sizzling, burning. The patrol cried out, stumbling back. The human fired the last shot. The third fell, motionless. Silence. Only the hiss of the stove and the pounding of their hearts remained. The girl stood, trembling, her hands still clutching the empty pot. Her wide eyes met his. "You fought for me." "Why?" He holstered his blaster, breathing heavy. "Because you reminded me I'm still human." Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. For the first time, her silence broke not with fear, but with something softer. "Then I am glad I cooked for you." But their moment was short. Outside the door, more boots thundered. Reinforcements were coming. The human pulled her close, his voice sharp. "We can't stay. We run. Now." She nodded quickly, gathering what little she could. Only 2 jars of spice survived the chaos. She clutched them close as if they were her soul. They slipped out the back door into the narrow corridor. Lights flickered overhead. The sound of alarms echoed through the station now, warning of intruders. The girl's steps were hurried, but she struggled to keep pace. The human stayed close, covering her with every turn. The station twisted like a maze, shadows chasing them at every corner. At last, they reached the docking bay. His ship stood waiting, battered but strong. A few guards spotted them raising weapons. The human didn't hesitate. He fired, covering their path, dragging her aboard. The ship's engines roared to life, shaking the ground. Inside, the girl clung to the spice jars, her breath uneven. She looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "If you take me with you, your life will never be the same." He strapped himself into the pilot's chair, hands moving fast across the controls. "Good. I'm tired of the same." The ship lifted, engines screaming, breaking free from the station. Fire trailed behind as they shot into the stars. The human glanced at her one last time. Her glowing eyes met his, filled with gratitude and fear, and he realized he had made his choice. Not survival, not escape, but trust, and that choice would change the galaxy. The heart won through food. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's window, cold and distant. The hum of the engines filled the silence as the human piloted them away from the alien station. His hands gripped the controls tightly, but his eyes flicked toward the girl sitting in the co-pilot's chair. She clutched her spice jars like they were her heartbeat. Her glowing blue eyes stayed fixed on the view outside, yet he could see her trembling. For the first time since they met, she looked smaller, fragile, almost breakable. "They will follow," she whispered. He didn't answer. He already knew. The patrols would not forgive. They would brand him a traitor, a criminal. Wherever he went, their hunters would come. "Still," he said calmly, "let them follow." She turned toward him, her voice shaking. "Why risk your life? For me? You had no reason. You could have walked away." His jaw tightened. He kept his eyes on the stars. "Because you gave me a reason." Her lips parted. "What reason?" He finally looked at her. His voice was quiet but steady. "You reminded me what it feels like to belong, to sit down, to eat, to trust." Tears shimmered in her eyes. She held the jars closer. "Then you understand my curse?" He frowned. "Curse?" She nodded slowly. "Every spice I carry is a memory. My people believe food holds our soul. If I cook for you, part of me stays with you forever. You can never be free of it." The human leaned back in his chair, thinking of the stew, of the bread, of the warmth in that tiny kitchen. He shook his head. That's no curse. That's a gift. For the first time, her lips curved into a soft smile. It was small, fragile, but real. The silence between them grew warm, almost safe. But then the ship's sensors beeped sharply. He checked the screen. His chest tightened. "They're here," he muttered. Outside, through the window, lights appeared. Patrol ships, fast, armed, and closing in. The girl's face went pale. "You cannot fight them all." He smirked faintly, a fire in his eyes. "I don't need to fight them all, I just need to remind them what it means to face a human." The ship rattled as the patrol fired the first shot. Alarms blared. He jerked the controls, weaving between blasts of plasma fire. Sparks flew across the cabin. The girl gripped her seat, her spice jars rattling against her chest. "Hold on!" he shouted. The ship dove, engines roaring, cutting hard through the black void. But the patrols stayed close, their weapons lighting up the darkness. The girl's hands shook. She opened one of the jars, releasing a sharp, glowing powder into the air. The scent filled the cabin, strong, sweet, electric. The human coughed, startled. "What are you doing?" Her voice was steady now, stronger than before. "If food binds hearts, then maybe it can blind enemies too." She scattered the powder across the vents. The ship's systems carried it, outward, trailing glowing dust into space. The patrols flying directly behind passed through the cloud. Their sensors glitched, blinded by the strange energy. Shots went wide, crashing into each other instead of the fleeing ship. The humans' eyes widened. "That actually worked." She nodded faintly. "Cooking has many secrets." He grinned. "Then keep your secrets. Just don't stop saving my life with them." The ship tore through the chaos, slipping into a faster lane of travel. The patrols fell behind, their signals fading from the radar. Finally, silence returned. The human leaned back, exhausted. His chest heaved with heavy breaths, but his eyes flicked to her again. She still held the last jar of spice, clutching it tight, her glowing eyes watching him. "You saved us," he said quietly. Her voice was soft, but filled with conviction. "No, we saved each other." He paused, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough." For a long moment they sat in silence, the stars flowing past. Then she rose from her chair. She moved carefully to the small galley at the back of the ship. "What are you doing?" he asked. She glanced back, her voice soft but sure. "Cooking." His brow furrowed. "After all that?" She smiled faintly. "Especially after all that. Food heals what fear destroys." Minutes later, the scent of herbs and broth filled the ship. She placed a bowl in front of him, steam rising into the quiet cabin. He stared at it, then at her. "You're serious," he said. Her eyes softened. "I told you. I don't talk much, but I can cook." He lifted the spoon, tasting the meal. Warmth spread through him, not just in his stomach, but in his chest. He looked at her, his voice quiet. "You've won." Her head tilted. "Won?" "My heart," he said simply. Her glowing eyes widened, then softened with tears. She did not hide this time. She sat across from him, watching as he ate. And for the first time since they met, the silence between them was not filled with fear or mystery, but with trust. The human knew the galaxy would hunt them. Danger would follow. But as he ate, he felt ready. Because this bond, born in a kitchen, forged in fire and food, was stronger than fear. The quiet encounter had begun with a whisper. Now, it had become a story that would echo through the stars.